Well, welcome back to the FASA Leadership Lounge, where we have the opportunity to discuss various policies impacting Florida's school leaders. We are so excited to start the second season of this podcast. And I am Michelle White, Executive Director of the Florida Association of School Administrators.
I am Jessica Janasiewicz, and I serve as the lobbyist for FASA and a number of other school districts here in Florida.
And today we are so excited to have a special guest with us. We have longtime FASA member and chair of FASA's legislative committee and principal of Clay High School in Green Cove Springs, Dr. Jen Halter. So, hey, Jen, you want to say hi and share a little bit of your background?
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about your journey in education and getting to principal at Clay High School.
Thanks for having me. I'm so great to see you guys and talk to you again. I am a 20-year educator, started out as an English teacher, teaching eighth grade students English at Orange Park Junior High here in Orange Park in Clay County. Then went on to be an administrator where I joined FASA right away as an assistant principal and was quickly moved from assistant principal 1 year, vice principal 1 year, then principal of Green Cove Junior, where I served for 6 years, and then moved up the street 1.5 miles to be the principal at Clay High School, where we just started my 5th year here at Clay High. Great community, love it here, and having a blast being the principal of Clay High.
That is awesome. We're
So
excited.
with all of that on your plate, what made you interested in the legislative process and to get involved with FASA as part of our legislative committee and now chair of our legislative committee?
Being part of FASA really opened my eyes to how to advocate on behalf of educators and really help to stay informed of what is going on and the decision process that happens up in Tallahassee and in DC that impacts our work directly. I kind of fell into the position. I was serving on the board, one of the boards at FASA, and the person who served as our NASSP state advocate person, we call it the state coordinator, vacated that position, said, Jen, you do a great job. I had no idea what I was stepping into. I'm like, sure, why not? They threw me right into that role, and we went away to DC and met with legislators, and it kind of gave me the passion and loved learning about how to do this work and talk to legislators about what really goes on in our schools and the decisions that they make, how they impact our work. I really believe and strongly believe that we're partners in the work, that everybody comes wanting to do the best that they can to provide quality education for our students. And I feel that if we come and tell our stories and tell about what's really going on, then we can help inform them to make the best decisions possible for the policies to help us meet our students' needs.
That's a really great point. And I love also the little bit of a leadership message there too, of like you kind of fell into the role and stepped in. I know that that's definitely something where as a leader, sometimes you're just asked to serve in certain roles, whether you necessarily know what it means or not, and willing to step in. So that's exciting too, that you had the opportunity to just jump right in.
Yeah, it was kind of scary at first. You're going into these offices and you're not quite sure what to do. And you really have to just take a step back and say, everyone has a story and everybody has a story that they tell about their experiences in school. And I chose to spend my whole life in a school building. And it's because I had positive experiences in school. And so not everybody has that experience, right? And so some of those people end up in very powerful positions that make policy and decisions that drive the entire work of the state or the nation. And so if I cared that much about fixing it so that every kid that walks in every school building has positive learning experiences, then they grow up and have kids, then they really champion the power of education. Then when they become the new leaders of our nation and our state, they're more likely to make policy and support and give us the tools so that we can keep doing the work. And so instead of fighting against some things, if they grow up with all the positivity and all the great things and experiences, and when they come really educated and really love that, then it just makes our world even better. And the funding increases and the tools increase and the policies work with us and not against us. And so that's kind of why I do what I do and continue to share those stories and partner with amazing, amazing leaders in our state and our nation that actually come down and walk Clay High School and see the great things we're doing. And when you do that and you have those relationships with those policymakers, then they're going to work with you and we're going to do amazing things for kids.
I'm so glad to hear you talk about the relationships, because that really is the most important part, right? I mean, that is, if you can build a relationship with your legislator or legislators, they will come to you and talk to you and ask you your opinion about whatever legislation they're working on. And they trust people that they have relationships with, and not that they don't trust experts as well, but if you're someone they have a relationship with and you're an expert, it's just all the more impactful. And I think the vast majority of people that come to Tallahassee or go to DC are wanting to make a positive difference. Most people don't go in there trying to do negative things.
Right.
So, but we all know what we know, right? And everyone's coming with their own experience, their own professional experience. So, to have a relationship with a leader like yourself, then they know, okay, well, I may be an accountant in my real life. And I may not have a lot of experience with what it's like to lead a school, but I know Jen and I can call her and she can give me some advice and counsel. And it's just so important.
So Jen, let's talk about this last legislative session. We have covered all of the policies pretty much between Jessica and I talking about them through session. Is there a particular one that you feel is going to make the most impact, either for you as a leader or for your school this year?
So I love this podcast, by the way. It is very helpful to listen to it driving to and from work. In fact, I drive my teenagers to school with me and they roll their eyes, but I feel like we're teaching them what's happening.
This is Civics 101 right
yes,
here about education policy.
That's right. And it's interesting because my daughters have met our legislators and they interact with them when they're home in town, and so it's nice because I'll look at them and go, and that's what Mr. Garrison's doing, and that's what Senator Bradley's doing, and and so it actually shows these are real people working for our community, and the impact that they have and the great things they're doing. So one thing that was a great thing is, and I will tell you, talking about relationships, is I was talking to Senator Bradley. She asked my opinion about what she was going to do with the start times and giving that flexibility for each community to make that decision on if that start time of moving it later for high schools was going to be helpful, and what the needs of our community were. And so that shows they do listen and they look at the needs of the community that they all the for her, she represents a vast variety, but some are very rural. And she was talking about the struggles that start time would have caused for those communities. So it's really nice to hear that she really listens to all the constituents and comes back. And so that was one that actually impacted our work, because it would have been a huge change for Clay County schools. And we were already starting to look at what are we going to do and feeling that out, and our amazing superintendent Broski was trying to start looking at that. So we were very thankful that our community really didn't want it and we were able to have that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as some others that have been listening that and involved in the process with us, that was a huge priority for us this year too, right along with some school safety changes, which we were also excited about, and that the state board has confirmed through rules, some changes over the summer as well. So, prioritizing student safety is a big piece, and then also making sure that they're ready to learn and we're ready to support them. But you guys have that local control piece of it.
Right. And that, I think that's the power of advocacy as well, especially with the safety bills that came through. So, you always want to look at everyone is operating on, they're doing the best they can, and they come from a place of wanting to do good and protect our students. And so we had safety policies come down last year with bills that were very restrictive on schools. We, I remember sitting in our principals meeting looking at the legislation going, oh gosh, like all the things that we had to change, the gates we had to look at and the things we had to monitor, and then having to tell our coaches, it really affected our athletic coaches that were struggling with how am I supposed to coach, how am I supposed to coach soccer and monitor this gate where I have a kid coming in and out, and how do we make sure? And really it all came down to from the legislative aid that's probably started writing that bill to the people who put it in place all the way down, everybody means well. They're trying to make sure our kids are safe. And so that's great. But then when you push it to the schools, it's important for the leaders to listen to their people, to see how it's affecting our schools, and then to come back and say, I understand that you want these things. This is how it affected our lives. Here's how I had coaches that wanted to quit coaching because it was too hard. We're chasing down, making sure doors are closed all the time. And we're struggling with some safety funding for different things. So, coming back and communicating those needs is where it's important, because then that's when you have those, we like to call them deregulation bills, but that's not really what it is. But we're looking at, okay, let's take the meaning of these things, let's take what we're trying to do, and let's make sure it works in the real world. And so not taking away, we're not making them less safe, but it was helpful to say, okay, now you can do it 30 minutes before kids arrive and 30 minutes after. And that was a huge sigh of relief win for our school leaders, because we do have people trying to leave this profession because of the pressures, and we all are trying to do the best we can. And safety is our number one goal, and it should be and it is our number one priority. But it was great to have everyone that makes those policies listen to what we can do and still stay with the spirit of the bill, the purpose of that bill. And so that was another thing that we felt like I just actually, in prepping for our pre-planning week and telling our teachers that, and what the expectations are, and our supports around that, that is something we can do. And it's going to be, I'm going to keep my coaches, right? So it's helping to really understand the work on both sides, the policy maker and what that means, and then making sure we can meet the needs of what our community actually needs.
That's awesome.
Speaking of those changes and things from this session, we are rapidly approaching the committee weeks for the next legislative session, if you can believe it or not.
Never ends.
It never ends. And so they'll be back in September for our first set of committee meetings, or October. And so thinking of that, we know that's on the horizon. What are some changes or improvements that you would like to see proposed next session that you think would have a positive impact?
So one bill that just got done is the cell phone bill. It's and we have a ban through middle school age, and then for high school we have it where you have a cell phone safe zone. So we have a safe zone that is in legislation that they can go and use the cell phone, and then it's no cell phone use during instructional time. And then your school board can decide to be more restrictive if they want to be. And so that is going to be interesting to watch this year, if there is anything that will be changed, just like the safety bill last year, if the parameters will change based on stories from school leaders. Now that we're putting this in place, what does it actually look like? And then what are the preferences of the communities as we go through the school year? So I'm sure there will be parents on both sides of that, and how they feel about cell phone usage. And then also, as we navigate through the year and looking at, the whole spirit of that is to protect instructional time, right? And for our kids to be able to not be on a cell phone. I mean, I have 2 teenage daughters, so I totally get it. And how do they function, and make sure that we're teaching social beings on how to make sure they communicate not with a cell phone in front of them at all times. And I totally understand that, and we support that. However, especially high school principals out there, we're running small cities. And so you can only monitor 3 things really well. One of them has to be instruction, one of them has to be safety. So if cell phone's the third, that's fine. But as we navigate through the year, it's going to be interesting to see. So as this in this new year, it's all about the stories, right? And it's all about sharing what's going on. So I'll be interesting to watch and see, is it going well in the spirit of we all mean well and we want to protect our kids and help raise a social society that is they're productive citizens, and is the cell phone ban going to do that or not? We don't know.
Mhm.
Right? So we're going to find out. So that's one that I'm kind of watching. And, I think too, as we move through what changes or improvements, I'm not quite sure yet. We're just starting the school year. Funding is a big thing that we're always bringing up with inflation. It is a struggle. I always am advocating for educators to make more, because especially with inflation, we have struggling teachers. But as we always talk about, we advocate for teachers' pay. We forget that we have staff, we have secretaries that work minimum wage jobs that are just as important. We cannot teach if we have to stop and clean a bathroom. We cannot teach if we have to answer the phones. So everyone that works in a school building is important. And I think it's important, just like with our school leaders, we have to keep competitive salaries that keep people from looking elsewhere, because we need our leaders in the building. We need everyone who works in a school building to make a livable wage. And so as we look at that, and I really want to champion, Senator Rob Bradley, and when he was the senator, was working on raising the teacher salary, and they did a great job of raising that base salary. And I'm very thankful for that. And that was partly too sharing. My husband was a teacher at the time, and sharing those stories. And so I'm always going to push for supporting the raise, and I appreciate that they continue to add funding to that in the budget. That's very important to us. So I'm thankful for that, and I continue to talk about. Thank you so much. If you want to give us more, we will take it.
That's right, for sure. And, we, as FAFSA, one, we were big supporters of raising that starting teacher salary and making sure that there was funding for our veteran teachers so that we could continue to raise that level. Of course, we're also advocating for administrators along that line too, because not every district pays administrators in the same way. And the to your point about inflation and things like that, that's happening all over the state, but not all over the state are we seeing increases for administrators in the same ways. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're retaining leaders. We have definitely seen a large influx of new leaders, which is always wonderful, of continuing to grow the pipeline of the profession and support leaders as they're coming in. But we want to make sure that we can keep them too, because national surveys are telling us the average principal will stay maybe 3 years or less, and they're hopping out. And that's really difficult for a community, as you think about the principal is so responsible for building that culture within their school building and working to high achievement levels and pushing for that. But when they're leaving so quickly, that can be really hard for a school too.
Absolutely. And even you talk about being fiscally responsible, the amount of money it takes to train leaders and train teachers and staff, you're investing in a professional, and then they up and leave for many reasons. Some of it's burnout, some of it's, for whatever. But yeah, if we can continue to retain our teachers and our leaders and our staff, then we're not wasting that money. We're investing in people that are going to stay. And so part of that is salary, part of it's training, and training the right way and on the right things.
So we know that you kind of have this passion for some of this policy, and you've been working with FAFSA for a number of years, and you've had the opportunity to see at the state level, the federal level, through FAFSA and NASSP. What would you say to a potential member or a current member of FAFSA about just getting engaged in the legislative or policy process?
So I would say, again, we talked about relationships, but just asking questions, being curious, follow a leader who's been doing it for a while, like go with them. So come with them to the visit. We have advocacy days at FASA in January. There's one for NASSP where we go in March to DC, but you can start at advocacy in Tallahassee with FASA. That's how I learned, is I followed my principal back in the day. I went with him as an assistant principal and I watched how he came and talked to legislators, and really I even learned that a ton of work is done by the aides. The legislative aides are the ones who are writing those bills with the direction of their legislator, but it's really interesting because I wouldn't have known that. And I wouldn't have known when you make an appointment, if you only get the aide is powerful. The aide is important. They do great work. And you're probably talking to somebody who has done a lot of that writing of that bill. And so having those conversations and asking questions. And again, you've got to come with a sense of everybody's trying to do the best they can, and they're operating off the story they know. They're operating off the truth that they know. And so if their truth is that public schools are failing, or we don't do this right, and we need to have more policy around XYZ, because that's their experience and that's the people in their ear that's telling them those things, you have to be the one to start bringing, and it can't just be you. It's power in numbers. So you have to rally the rest of the leaders to come and share not just one story, but many stories. And the stories you share better be true, because they're going to do their homework. So if you say this happened at XYZ school, they're going to call, they're going to find out. And if it's wrong, you've lost their trust. So you want to make sure that you tell the right stories and don't waste their time. So it's developing relationships, but it's even more than that. When you spend time with those people, because they're very, very busy, just like we are, just like you are. When people say, hey, you have a minute, it's like the worst phrase ever. You're like, ah, and you don't, but you're like, yes, of course. I'm so excited to see you. So you want to make sure that when you spend time with them, because they've created time for you, you follow that up with a handwritten note. It's so important. You want not an email. You can send an email, but you better take the time to write a handwritten note. And at FAFSA, when we do advocacy, we sit down and we have that war room where you can do it right there, because we're leaders, we're busy, we're already putting out fires in our building, we're making those phone calls. So I appreciate that you guys build that in, that we sit down and we can do it right there. And you give specific praise of, I appreciate in this conversation that you said these things. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope to meet with you when you're back home, because here's the other thing. They're up in Tallahassee running around like crazy. And Jessica, I know you do that work and you can talk about that. And I appreciate that they carve out the time. I always feel bad when I go see my pals up there and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I can see you later, because it's great they make time for us while they're there, but you need to make time with them when they're home. Because I think in showing that you're part of the community that they're serving, and you care enough about them to go find them when they're in their hometown, is so important. And that's powerful in developing those relationships. So, and the legislative aides as well. Like, I've had them out walking my school. I see them in the community and say hi, because they also are doing the work, and it's very important. So I think it's bringing along your new leaders, having them, showing them, and then just like we coach leaders ourselves, follow up with our leaders. Hey, now that you're home, you have XYZ happening that is affecting this policy. Have you ran into so and so in your community? Their office, is 2 miles from your school. Why don't you call them and see if you can swing by and have a meeting, or invite them out to a football game. Give them a hat when they come to visit you. Like, show them, walk them. A big one, especially in our state, CTE programs, career technical ed. It's huge. And there was some questions on funding recently. Have them come and walk your school and talk about the importance, because I'll tell you, when I called my pals and I even text them, I said, my daughter is in these classes that the funding may be cut from. I need your help. Please help me. Like, when you have the relationships, that hits differently than somebody you've never met walking in, just yelling at them, saying, don't do this. That's not going to do anything. They're going to listen. They're going to acknowledge it, But when you have those relationships, it's important. So I I just think I'm so passionate about it, but it really is, as we always say, it's about relationships and people. And everybody's trying to do the right thing. It's not that they're doing anything they're trying to be malicious or do something wrong. And so it's working together and saying, okay, if you want to do XYZ, I gotcha. I will do that. I will do the best I can. And then I'll share with you if it's not working, or I'll share with you if the successes that came from that.
Yeah,
One
and
of
I
the,
think
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I think that's so important, right? Of you talking about bringing the leaders and their aides to come and walk the buildings with you. And, we've started our Principal for a Day program, and we try to have principals bring leaders, especially in October, which is National Principals Month. But it just gives them a whole different perspective of your role as a leader, because guaranteed you're walking around your school building with the legislator, let's say, and you're showing them the CTE program. Students are going to come and ask you questions, or a teacher might stop by your office, or your walkie-talkie is going to beep about something. And so they're seeing what role you're playing in that school, and how critical those decisions that you're making are, and everything. So I one question on that. How can a leader maybe feel more comfortable inviting an elected leader to come and shadow them? If maybe they're nervous, they're like, ooh, what if I show them the wrong thing? Like, what would you say to that?
So the first thing I do is I would make sure your superintendent's on board, and get with your superintendent's schedule to make sure, because if you have a politician in your school building, you probably want to make sure your boss is there too, and totally ready to go, and because they're going to want FaceTime as well, right? And so that's step one. Then you want to probably make sure that you get with their schedule, and you want to, they're just as busy. Those politicians, they're very busy. So figure out, what do you want them to see? What exactly do you want them to take? If they give you an hour, what are you going to take them to? So you can't walk them around, show them everything, because it's massive. So just show them the one thing that you're trying to get across or you want to share. If it's CTE programs, if it and tie it to things that they care about. So another important thing when you're talking to legislators is do your research. What is the work that they're doing, and what committees are they on? What are they chairing? What have they done in the past? Where are their passions? And so tie it to something that they are passionate about or that they care about. Here, so one thing, Congressman Aaron Bean, amazing guy, wonderful. He came and walked Clay High School. His wife was a salutatorian for us, and this is coming up on a class reunion. She'll be here for homecoming, hopefully. We're so excited. So part of that was, it was fun for her to walk around at her alma mater and show off the school, but he cares a lot about CTE programs. So that's what he wanted to see, and that's what we did. And so finding out what they're focusing on and just give that, because I could have took him to just math classrooms, but that's not what he was focused on or working on. So not that math isn't as important, but that's another thing you want to do. So do some research. I would, we're always better together. So talking to other principals or calling FAFSA and picking your brain about it, Jessica, and you do such a good job, and just saying, this is happening. What should I do? We can walk you through that process as well. It's not scary. It's actually very fun. So
That's great advice. I really appreciate it.
I think it's some of the most enjoyable things for legislators when you talk to them. They talk about when they got to go to this school in their community, or this nonprofit. They liked being in their community, seeing their community, being a part of that. And so and then it's such a great opportunity to show off all the amazing things that we've got going on in our schools too. um, so when we think about that, and we think about all that there is and all that you all are dealing with at the school level, and all the changes that are everywhere, one of the things we do every year at FAFSA is we develop a platform, which are our priorities as an association that we're going to be focused on during that legislative session. And so could you talk a little bit about what that process is like, and maybe how our members can make the most difference in that process and give their input.
So we have a legislative committee, and you can be a part of it. So in serving on the committee, we meet virtually. So across the state, we have voices from all across the state because it's important, because sometimes, although we all deal with common issues and challenges, sometimes we also need to know, like, maybe this particular issue that's very important is happening in South Florida, but it may not be happening in North Florida. So that's important to know for context as well. So when we are creating our platform, I always like to point back to our beliefs with FAFSA and what we do and why we do it, and making sure that it ties directly back to the mission and vision of FAFSA. And then we look at what were our wins before. What I really love, Jessica, is that in that committee, you say, okay, here are the things coming. Here is what we can really lean on and probably get a good win with. They're leaning towards these things, or this is the focus this year. These are the priorities from the speaker. This is what's happening. And so if we know these are the priorities that are coming, we can partner together. We don't want to work against people. We want to work together to be the most successful we can be for students. So that is very helpful to say, okay, if this is a priority, then this is how it can fit into what we do in our work, and that we can work together. So I like building the platform, and then we do quite a few drafts actually as a committee, and look through it and really hash it out. And I love all the voices that are in the committee, because we have some a variety of voices, and that is what makes it so great. We represent an entire state, and in doing that, we come with all kinds of needs and differing viewpoints. So it's great that we're able to try to make sure our platform meets all the communities that we serve and all the needs that are there for our school leaders.
Yeah, and just also having all the levels of school leadership included in that committee, right? We've got
Yes.
some APs, and we've got definitely principals and district level leaders, even our partners through the professors of educational leadership, right? And
Yeah.
so it's ongoing, and we set that platform at the beginning, but then really sometimes those committee meetings, Jessica and I are coming to you and saying, okay, here's what they're proposing now, and we need some feedback. And then that helps us continue to do that work when our members are not physically here, but Jessica and Jeff and I are all in the Capitol having these meetings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you and sharing your insights, and certainly your leadership for FAFSA and your students and staff at Clay High School. We value all of the time that you give to us. Thank you to our listeners. We are really excited to be starting season 2 of the Leadership Lounge. We will have more interviews and updates throughout the legislative process, and even state board rule process, and the federal level as well. We will have some legislative committees starting this October, as Jessica talked about. Week 1 will be in early October. So we'll definitely be sharing that. You can share the FAFSA Leadership Lounge with your colleagues, and we always encourage you to check out our resources at FAFSA.net. So thanks so much, and stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. The podcast is produced by Jeff Willoughby. Special thanks to musical director David Higgins. Make sure to subscribe to the Leadership Lounge podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topic suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@fasa.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.